And welcome back to Joe's Math Tools, where math is made easy. In our session today, we are calculating the LCM using the division ladder when we have three numbers and we're using one ladder. And if you want to see how this is done, let's get started. So in our example today, we will be calculating the LCM of three numbers using a single division ladder. Now when calculating your LCM, remember that you're looking for the lowest common multiple that these numbers will have in common. So now let's get started by first listing our prime numbers, which we will be using in the division ladder. Remember that the ladder uses only prime numbers. So I'll start by listing my prime numbers that are under 20 so that I can use these numbers as a reference. And remember that if you do not know your prime numbers under 20, you're going to need to start reviewing these numbers. You're going to need to start reviewing these numbers so that as you work through the division ladder, you will have them available to you so that you know what numbers you can and cannot use. So let's look at our numbers 45, 18, and 90. So I need a prime number that can divide into these three numbers. Now remember that when using the division ladder, there will be times when maybe you can use a number that can divide into all three at once, or you may simply have to work one number at a time. So remember that do not feel pressure that you have to work all three numbers at once. Sometimes you can and sometimes you won't be able to. But just approach the question, see if you can divide all three at once, and then if not, look to see if you can divide two, and then if you can work out two, then just simply work one number at a time. So let's start with our numbers, and the number that I can use to divide into all three of these numbers is going to be our number 3. Remember that as you divide on the division ladder, make sure that you put your quotient to each of your division number underneath the number that you divided into that digit. So that will help you with keeping those numbers aligned so that when you factorize, you can even go back and check if you need to once you have all of the information or all of the numbers lined up under their respective number. So let's get started. So 3 divides into 45 is going to be 15. 3 divides into 18 will be 6. And 3 divided into 90 is going to be 30. Now since 15, 6, and 30 are all multiples of 3, I will use 3 to divide these numbers again. So that's the next good thing about using the division ladder. If you know your multiples or your timetable, it helps you to be able to identify certain prime numbers that you can use right away. So 3 will divide into 15 5 times, 3 will divide into 6 twice, and 3 divides into 30 10 times. So now at this point, because I have 5, 2, and 10, we know that 2 and 5 are already prime numbers, so there's only one number that we can use to divide into those numbers. But what I am going to do, since that I can either divide by 5 or 2 at this point, because I'm going to have to separate my division, because all of these numbers will not be able to be divided by the same number, I'm going to start by using 5. And with 5, I can divide 5 into 5 once. So my first column is completely prime factorized. Now 5 is unable to divide into 2 because 2 is less than 5, and if I try to divide into 2, it will move me into decimal numbers, and we are looking for a number that we're going to divide out completely. So since I'm not dividing 5 into 2, I will return that 2 back to my division ladder. I didn't touch the 2 or change the 2. Remember that if you do not divide into the number, return it back to the division ladder untouched or changed. So now I'll divide 5 into 10, which will go twice. And now to wrap up my division ladder, I'm going to divide by 2. So my 1 I will bring down since my first column is completely prime factorized. 2 will divide into 2 ones, and 2 divides into 2 ones. So now that I have completely prime factorized my three numbers 45, 18, and 90, remember that we are looking for the LCM of those numbers. So that's what we are going to do now. We're going to look at our calculations for these three numbers. And remember that when calculating your LCM using the division ladder, and the good thing with one single division ladder is that all of our prime factors, which are on the left hand side of our ladder, these are the numbers that we use to divide into our respective numbers that we were given. These numbers, we are going to use each of them to calculate our LCM. So we have 2 times 3, and we have 2 3's, and then 1 5. So now with my multiplication, I'm going to group my numbers to multiply it a whole lot quicker. So 3 times 2 is equal to 6, which will be multiplied to 3 times 5, which is 15. And when 15 is multiplied to 6, I'll just do my working on the side in case anybody needs to follow along. So 6 times 5 is 30, carry the 3, 6 times 1 is 6, plus 3 will equal to 90. So our LCM of 45, 18, and 90 is going to be 90. And remember that you can always check your answer by simply going back to their basics and listing the multiples of these numbers to check the answer. And that will help you to verify whether the answer is correct or incorrect. But in either case, remember the basics never fail you. Okay, so I hope this video is very helpful to you. I hope that you were able to learn how to prime factorize and calculate the LCM of three numbers on one division ladder. Or maybe you are at that point where you just needed an additional help on how to calculate the three factors on one division ladder. But wherever you are, I hope this helps you out. I hope you were able to calculate the LCM, and remember that when you're ready to learn a new skill, make sure that you return back to Jules Math Tools, where we make math easy.